Tango Gameworks have quickly become one of the most interesting studios in my eyes. I didn't jive with the first Evil Within at all, but the sequel I thought was great. It showed they've got excellent artistic expression, creativity in terms of world design, but it just felt like something was missing. The Evil Within 2 was a game that showcased to me the potential this studio has, but that they weren't quite there yet. Then, last year, they shadow dropped Hi-Fi Rush out of nowhere, my third favourite game of 2023, that put the talent level of this developer at centre stage for all to see. Hi-Fi Rush was excellent, but I wanted to see that level of quality in their darker games. That's when I decided to play the Tango game I missed, Ghostwire Tokyo. This is a game that should have been right up my alley. Tango always nailed the atmosphere. I love Japanese culture. I love video game rain. I was really excited to give this a go, but Tango Gameworks let me down. Ghostwire Tokyo had a lot going for it, and it could have been brilliant, but it sadly got nowhere near, and in this video, we're going to discuss why. So despite the somber tone of the intro, we're actually going to start things off in positive fashion, because we're mostly a positive channel over here. This game isn't a complete disaster, it does do some things right. For example, there are a bunch of dogs in this game. Everybody loves dogs. They even take it one step further. You can actually pet the dogs. That's always a win in my book. In fact, keeping with the pet theme, the shops you visit to purchase items from are actually owned by a floating cat. Now, you may be thinking, how could a game with such perfect features, such as the ability to pet dogs and purchase ramen from a floating feline, really get much wrong? Well, we'll get to that. It's easy when a game is fundamentally bad. I've made videos on bad games and it's easy, because most things about the game are bad. But not everything about this game is bad. For example, you've got the setting. The setting and premise of this game are so damn cool. You're just chilling in Shibuya when all of a sudden everybody just starts vanishing and are instead replaced by a bunch of spirits. The enemy design is really creepy. This is something Tango have always managed to nail. They make their enemies fit the aesthetic of the world, and they've smashed it in Ghostwire. From slender men with umbrellas formulaically twirling towards you, to headless schoolgirls prancing with mischievous grace to kick you in the face. It's all brilliant. Enemy design is one thing they've fundamentally gotten right in this game. I don't get to fight many headless children in my day-to-day life, so it's nice Tango have decided to give players that experience. I also quite enjoyed the boss fights in this game. They're absolutely nothing special, but hey, I had fun with them. There's even a stealth boss at one part, where you need to sneak around and melee the boss from behind 3 times to kill it. All the while, it's hunting you down simultaneously. It's a brilliant game of cat and mouse, and it showcased the creative talent on show within this studio. And Tokyo itself also does this. What a gorgeous game world this is. The way the rain splashes down on the surface just really gets me. I love it when games do that. You also really feel the emptiness of the world. You're completely alone in this game, and whenever you're not, it won't be anything good that's accompanying you. Tango predictably nailed the atmosphere, as they so often do. Tokyo just looks a lot like Tokyo. I always love a game set in this city. I think it has a lot of potential as a setting, and Ghostwire does utilise this to its advantage. The game's art style also works really well in bringing the world to life. I love the way that the street lights change colour depending on whether you've been spotted. The lamppost will flicker yellow when you're about to be spotted and then switch to a harsh red upon detection. It's little stuff like that that really help with the atmosphere, and they really nailed that kind of thing. Well, that was nice, wasn't it? We got to talk about everything this game did well, so now for the bad stuff. This is where I'm going to get agitated, because the building blocks were there. They literally had it in the palm of their hand. And then they straight up Ubisofted this bitch. So, the world itself is interesting. Everything you do in it is garbage. This game has mind-numbingly boring level design. The open world is literally just a Ubisoft checklist to complete. What an absolute waste of a fantastic world that is. You could argue, well, nobody is forcing you to complete side content, and whilst in a general sense that is true, I will counter you with 2 points. The first is, they've created a world with the intention of it being immersive. You do not put this much attention to detail in the crafting of your atmosphere and enemy design if you do not want the end result being the player achieving peak immersion. They've then gone and dashed that by making it just like every single open world game from the mid-2010s. So that's point 1. Point 2 is, the main game is literally that as well. A wildly large portion of this game's main story involves you having to trek across the map to a location you've not been to yet, thus it is inaccessible due to the fog, which exists solely to waste the player's time. No, you can't just walk to the next mission, you must instead cleanse 3 Torii gates along the way so we can get an extra 30 minutes out of you between missions. And it also does this one particular thing that I hate, that funnily enough Ubisoft games also do, where instead of giving you a concrete waypoint, you'll get there, you will get to the waypoint, and then it'll give you a search area, padding out the runtime needlessly with bollocks like this. It's as though they did market research, took a look at what gamers were becoming tired of in regards to open world design, and decided to just incorporate every single element of it. For what? A laugh? I can assure you, Tango Gameworks, I am not laughing. A critically high percentage of this game consists of walking from main mission to main mission, being saddled with killing the enemies that get in the way, which wouldn't even be that big of an issue if the combat was fun and they were just fun to kill, but unfortunately this just isn't the case at all. I appreciate what they were going for with this combat, I really do. I love it when games try something new. It's the only way the industry can evolve, but there's just no rhythm to this combat loop at all. I honestly would actively dread running into enemies in this game. There was a short period in, I think it was chapter 4, when it started working a little bit for me, but even then, at this game's absolute peak, the combat can only be described as serviceable. A vast majority of the time it is simply bad. You basically have 3 different powers to cycle between. You've got your wind attacks, which is basically a normal standard attack that'll deal regular damage. You've got water attacks with a wider radius to hit multiple enemies at once. And then you've got fire attacks, which are the most powerful attack you have, that essentially serve as grenades with a big AoE if you upgrade it enough. You've then got other aspects. You do have a block. If you time it right, you can parry and counter attack. You can unlock a dodge that does work wonders, and there's also the talismans, which serve as additional aid to your arsenal, such as being able to stun enemies, which you can then utilise to swivel behind them and stab them in the back. On paper, these are pretty cool, but in practice, there just isn't a satisfying loop here. It very rarely clicked. I like that it's something different. It's not just shooting or melee, it's elemental magic, but it just feels like a janky loop of walk away from the fast walking enemies to avoid getting hit and fire projectiles to do damage, and it just doesn't work. The enemies seem too fast for this to work. You're almost always playing on the defensive, walking away from enemies that walk too quickly with too much health, meaning combat encounters generally take longer than they need to, and there's very rarely a meaningful reward at the end of it. When you combine this with the Ubisoft open world, you're having to go out of your way to clear the map, being forced into additional combat encounters that just begin to feel mundane very quickly. Then there's the story, and I have quite a few quarrels with the story. It starts off interesting enough, everybody around you has vanished, and you've suddenly got a spirit inside you. You then must save your sister. That sounds cool, it's a good enough carrot on a stick to get you going, but it very quickly becomes boring. The relationship between yourself, Akito, and the spirit, KK, just isn't fun enough. The two of them are conversing throughout the duration of the game. They need to have more personality than this. Think about Cyberpunk, for example, another game where the player has an unwelcome voice in their head. The development of V and Johnny's relationship is one of the pillars of the game, and one of my favourite aspects of it. In Ghostwire, KK just feels like a glorified tutorial. He just tells you what to do and where to go, and you just do it. There's very little back and forth. There's a moment in the latter half where you're separated from KK and are tasked with defending him from the spirits with your bow. This is clearly supposed to be an emotional climactic moment, but it does nothing. I don't care about KK. You haven't given me a reason to care about KK. I barely care about Akito and I'm controlling him. They've done a shambolic job of the characterization in this game, and Akito and KK aren't the only victims of this. The villain of the game is Hanya. Hanya's end goal is to shatter the barrier between the living world and the spirit world. But aside from looking pretty cool, again, the enemy design of this game, top notch, I didn't care about him either. He doesn't have much personality, he's just the bad guy, and you need to track him down and beat him. The main detriment to this story is that it does absolutely nothing to make you care about anyone or anything. Thankfully, the main campaign alone is around 10 hours long, but if I'm going to make a video on an open world game, never mind making a video on an open world game that I'm criticising, I need to at least do some of the side content. It would be disingenuous not to. So I did, and it's an up and down experience. Some of the side content is really cool. Japanese mythology has a hell of a lot of interesting creatures, and this game does a decent enough job of incorporating the likes of the Oni, for example. But some of the side missions just involve things like defending a cute little thing in a tree from enemies and claiming spirits. There is some good stuff here, but it's luck of the draw whether the side mission you select is going to be good or bad. Ghostwire Tokyo was a game I really wanted to like. It's from a developer I have really high hopes for, it's in a setting I personally really enjoy, but I just felt massively let down by the vast majority of the experience. There are hard-baked issues in the core facets of this game's design, and they're just too major to overlook. There's no use having an atmosphere this impressive if the open world design kills it. There's no use having enemy design this brilliant if they're this boring to fight. There's no use having a setting this cool if the story sucks doo-doo. Ghostwire Tokyo will long be remembered by me as a game that could have been great, but sadly fell massively short of the required bar. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, as I would love that and I'd give you a virtual high five. And if you want to see more videos from me, you should subscribe, because I upload every single week. But that is all for now. Have a nice day, and goodbye.